Welcome to the Lindsay and Tony podcast, where we talk about spirituality, business, and life experiences.
In this podcast, we're bringing our private conversations to you.
We believe that it's through discussion, action, and reflection that true change occurs. Hello, and welcome to episode 136, The Power of Taking Breaks. In this episode, Tony and I talk all about how taking breaks will actually increase your growth and, in actuality, give you more time. So you're going to notice a big difference just by listening to this when you become aware of, where am I not taking breaks and how can I change this in my life? Ooh, before you listen, I want to let you know I am offering a live business course. This has never happened before. We have all of my students that are in Unlock Your Psychic Medium online business. Anyone that's joined there or continues to join, you can show up live with us February 22nd to March 22nd on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us by going to lindsaymarino.com and click on the course button, and you'll see Unlock Your Psychic Medium online business. I'm so excited about this. We have over 80 psychic mediums and healers already in the course. The other thing that I'm opening up again is Mediumship Mastery Circle. It's a membership specifically for mediums, and I only open the door a few times each year. So go to lindsaymarino.com and you can find more info about that too. We hope you enjoy the show. Hi guys, welcome back. We're so excited that you're here. Today is all about the power behind taking breaks.
Woo!
And we actually took a long break from the podcast. Has it been over a month?
It's been about a month and a half. So we took about a month and a half off from doing our podcast episodes because we actually were working on a huge major project, another business venture that we found ourselves in.
Yeah. And we probably brought it up before we actually left for our trip, right?
We did on our last episode. We dropped a little hint in there.
Yeah. So we went to Missouri. We bought a second home, and we're going to have a spot to go to whenever we go to visit family, because we've been renting Airbnbs for I don't know how many years.
Several.
So we knew we were going to buy a place at some point in Boston and St. Louis, and St. Louis is the first spot. And we're going to be opening it up as an Airbnb. It's actually already open for an Airbnb, which is great.
Yeah, got our first booking.
Yes, I know.
They check in today.
I know. Woo! I know. It's actually perfect timing for the episode too.
So this episode is all about taking breaks, and we're not just talking about taking breaks throughout a year span. We're talking about on an everyday basis. Taking breaks strategically throughout the day, throughout the week, and throughout the year. That way you're refreshed and you're recharged.
And when that happens, sometimes, we were just talking about this earlier, sometimes you don't even know you're going to take the break. It just sort of happens, or you need the break, and that's when you figure out, oh my God, I'm so drained, I need this time away.
Right, so think about it. Do you feel drained a lot? Do you feel drained more than you feel energized? Of course, you're going to have a balance of both, but if you're feeling drained more than you feel energized, that's a clue that you need to take more breaks. And I hate to tell people what they need to do, but that's a clue right there.
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the things that this episode is about is how to figure out for you when that feeling comes up, and maybe you create a reference for yourself when you see a certain sign or you get a certain feeling, you know that you don't get to that breaking point before you actually take the break.
Exactly. We could create a compass for you. So what's your compass? How do you know what direction to go? How do you know when to take a break, when not to take a break, when you're taking breaks too long? Because that's the thing too. Yeah. You could tell when you took breaks too long, because then you start to feel stagnant, you start to feel all these low energies, and it's not a good thing, right? So it's about tuning into your own instinct, and we're all so different, so we can't give you a blueprint on how to do this. We can only share our insights in hopes that you get some insights in this episode on, ask yourself the question, how can I strategically take breaks? How can I tune into my energy to where my energy lets me know when I need a break?
Right, and it's so funny because Romeo's looking at me.
He's the king of breaks.
He really is the king. And he knows when to leave a room and when to stay in the room and everything else. He's our little teacher. So one of the things that I notice when I need a break, like a breather for the day, is I actually find myself holding my breath. I don't know if anyone else listening has had this happen where you're like, oh my gosh, I was just holding my breath. And the way that I tell is all of a sudden I'm like that. And it happens. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was holding my breath. So it's awareness, and even when I go outside and take a walk, sometimes I'll find myself walking really fast, and I notice I slow down and look up at the trees and look at the flowers, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be present. And it's just that awareness that comes over me. So I'm curious to know what happens with you when you know, wait a second, I waited a little bit too long, and I know that I need to take this little breathing time.
Right, that's a great point. And just to give them a visual, if any of you that watched the movie The Shift, Lindsay brought up a great point before we watched this episode. You want to share that?
Yeah, before we shared this episode. So in the movie The Shift, which we've watched 1,000 times and listened to it, it's on YouTube. It's actually free on YouTube right now, with Wayne Dyer. And there's a part of the movie The Shift where there's this mother that's going on vacation with her family and her kids. And she wanted to stay longer at this beachy place, this resort or wherever they were. And she told her husband, like, I have to stay. I have to do this for me. She was feeling completely drained, totally tapped out, really didn't have the energy for life. And she stayed and she kept painting and really used her creativity. And when she was experiencing that, you could see the smile on her face. You could see she looked replenished and recharged, and she was better for her family.
She was.
And that's something to remember.
It is something to remember.
When that happens.
Yeah, and she was portrayed throughout that movie as like the typical mom that's overworked, that's going, taking care of the husband, making him coffee, breakfast, all of these things. And you could tell that throughout that point, she was just like, it was like she was like a robot and tired, very tired, and she was just on automatic pilot because that's, as a mother, right? I'm not a mom, but I'm assuming that you get this feeling like that's your responsibility. I need to do this. But we're also here to remind you that you need to take breaks too. You need to find your hobbies like she did. She started to paint. She started to do that creativity. And like Lindsay said, her whole energy started to shift. Have you ever felt like that before? Put it in the comments. Tell us.
Yeah,
Tell us when you felt so down before, so low on energy, and you just went to a go-to. You either had a meditation or you started painting or whatever it was for you. Share with us, please. Okay, so another example would be like when we were teaching, I noticed that, so as a teacher, obviously, for most teachers, you're working 10 months out of the year. So you're off from typically June to about August. And for me, when I was teaching in the public schools, I noticed that that was a time that I could leave that environment that I was always around where everybody knew who I was. They knew my growth level at that point because they see me every day. And I could take myself from that environment and have the space to actually grow at a much more rapid pace. And that's what I noticed. I noticed that when I was in the summer, and of course we were doing a lot of road trips then too, and that was part of it too. And that's what we put out here is like, live your life. Do the things that you love because that's part of the recharging too. So that's why I was able to...
Don't take a 2-week vacation throughout the year. Take moments like day trips or whatever you have to do too.
Right. So throughout the summer we were doing all this and I would come back so refreshed the next year and I felt like a new person even though it was only probably 8 weeks total in between.
Exactly. And that happened with us for winter break and spring break too.
Right.
Because we did have that time. And just like the kids need breaks throughout the day and throughout the year, adults do too. And I think when it comes to work, when I'm calling it work, but like the typical work, the 8-hour day, people go in at a certain time and then they leave at a certain time. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to create those breaks for yourself. And I think that was one of those things that was difficult for me at the very beginning because I was so used to during the day having certain breaks. So I would kind of mirror that in my day with mediumship, but I didn't take enough as much as I could have, really.
Exactly.
I could have taken more during the day. And I was kind of staying in one spot. I wasn't leaving the house to go for a walk at the beginning.
Right, because you're referring to when you were teaching, so you were going with your teaching schedule like it was before. And I found myself doing that too. And as teachers, you don't really get too many breaks throughout the day. You get a lunch break, you get, what else? Maybe one period off if you're a high school teacher. But you don't get all those different breaks. But like Lindsay was saying, and like when I left teaching, I noticed that now my schedule's still like this to where I'll work a couple hours and then I'll go for a bike ride and then I'll work a couple hours. So I'm the type where I have to do that because I get, and Lindsay, I feel like you're like that too, to where you have a limit of maybe about 3 hours.
Yeah, that's my limit.
And then you're like, I need to go for a walk or I need to do something creative, or like you'll go on Canva, even though it's still kind of working, but it's like a creative thing for you.
Yes, it's true. It does have to, you need to figure out what feels right for you. And I think that's a big thing.
Right. You have to look at it like an experiment. You can't just, once again, we can't give you the blueprint because you're not us. So you could take a few of these things, try them out, and then also you're getting insights right now. And that's the point of this. We're creating a space and you're getting these thoughts. Write these thoughts down right now because you think that, oh, they're here, I'll remember them. You're not going to remember them because they're coming from somewhere else. So put them in a notebook and look back and refer to those notes. So, you know, Lindsay and I, we both have notebooks all the time and we go back and refer to them.
Yeah, we write everything down.
It's one of those things because you're constantly, here's how I look at it, you're constantly running experiments on yourself. So when I first heard about all this personal development and all this, I was thinking, oh, I could just do exactly what this guy does and I'll be happy. Or I could do exactly what this guy does and I'll be happy. And what I found over time is I can't because I'm not them. I'm a totally different person. So I got to figure out what lifestyle, what creativity, what energies I want to put myself into and how I want to show up in this world. And you have to do the same thing. It takes work.
True. And that's what we've been doing with our masterminders. We've been working with a group of people for our mastermind, and one of the things that we said at the beginning, like everyone's going to be on a different page. You may notice some similarities, but you might need something different than the other masterminder, you know, because everyone has different wants in their life and different priorities. And I think that's important, is to figure out what are your priorities and what do you need to stay rejuvenated for. Because if you're working with clients, you really do need to be rejuvenated and feel good. So in order to be best for them, overworking is not going to work. That's not going to work at all. So you need to have that built into your schedule. That might be the thing that has to happen, that you put an alarm on for yourself, like, hey, I'm taking a self-care day, or I'm taking the Friday off at the end of the month, or I'm taking a break at 12 o'clock and making sure that I eat lunch on time. So that's huge.
It's really big. What were you going to say?
Oh, no. Go.
This reminds me of, like, we were talking about this too before the episode started. This reminds me of when I was a kid, I noticed that I needed to remove myself from my family members. Have you ever heard of the thing called the self-fulfilling prophecy? Where if people, they see you a certain way, you're more likely to act that way in front of them. And I felt that as a kid, especially all of you empaths, you're really going to feel this. And when I was younger, I noticed that I had to remove myself from the adults in my life. I had to go away to create that space so that I can grow. Because I feel like when you're around the same energy all the time, like say, even if it's a high energy, say you're doing highly successful work all the time, it becomes like the table in your living room. You just see it, you're not really sure how great it is, and you kind of get lost. And I think that's what happens when you don't take breaks. You get burnt out, you get lost, you get stressed, you end up on medications, and all of these different things.
When people see you as a certain way and you're used to being that person in front of those people, it's really hard to change that. It's almost like you feel frightened because you want to be maybe more outgoing, or you want to show your personality to other people, but you feel afraid because they're already used to you being a certain way. And I don't know if it's Tony Robbins that brings up the fact that there's no rule. Like, you don't need to stay the same the whole time in your life. But it is very difficult to kind of get out of those patterns. And it is taking a step back, having that moment to internally grow and go inward and maybe change your environment. Because this is another thing I was going to say. When a lot of people say, well, when I go to this state or when I travel, I feel like a different person. Yeah, you do feel like a different person. You see different things and you have different perceptions. But some people say that they feel more comfortable in different states. It's not because it's a state. It's because it's your state of mind, really. You're actually thinking, I can go to the state and nobody knows me, so I can be whoever I want to.
Right. So each state creates a different state of mind.
Exactly. So just taking that state of mind in your current situation when you come back from that different state.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's a great point. And just to add to that, it's once again, it's because you're removing yourself from the commonality of your life and you have this new space. Because when you're around people, we're all like this, to where we see everybody around us in a way, right? We all do this. So when you're around that, and all of us empaths, you know, in this room right now, you watching this video, you feel that. So it's like you don't have the space to experiment. That's what we talk about a lot on this podcast episode. Like Lindsay said, Tony Robbins talks about it. You don't have to be the same person you were yesterday. You could experiment. Maybe you don't think you're funny. You could create yourself to where you're actually a hilarious person, right? You don't have to be something you're not if that's something you genuinely feel pulled to. I'm talking to all you people out there that maybe you've been suppressing yourself all these years, and you don't even know who you are because you never let it out because you've been around all these people that, not intentionally, maybe some of them intentionally, were suppressing you, and they were, you were in this small little what is it called? A small little box, and you can't grow. It's like the plant, right, in the pot.
Yeah.
It can't grow. It grows as big as the pot is. Or it's like a shark. I saw something about a shark. If you leave a shark in like a small tank, it only grows as big as the tank. So it's the same thing here, and it all has to do on that deeper level of energy that you all are constantly feeling all around you.
Exactly. So we would love to know, is there anything that you know that you need to do to take that break? Are you going to put it in your calendar? Are you thinking of ideas of what you want to do to kind of put a break in your day or your year or your month? What types of things are you going to do to take action to make this happen so you can feel recharged, replenished, and get everything that you need out of life? We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. If you liked it, leave a 5-star review on iTunes, and remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel too.
If you can think of anyone else that would love this episode, share it with them right now on social media or email. And remember, getting results is a process of learning, applying, and reflecting. Stay consistent and continue to grow every day.